Why is Cambridge trusted by teachers everywhere? Come on, let's go find out. Is it because over 100 million Cambridge English exams and tests have been taken and are trusted by more people than anyone else? I think it's because Cambridge helps teachers like me do what we do best. Every single day, Cambridge is trusted by millions of teachers and learners around the world. Cambridge is where your world grows.
Welcome to the Cambridge Success Academy. Today is another exciting step, level, stop. I don't like using the word stop because you keep on moving when we're doing the exam preparation journey, right? Today, we're very excited. My name's Rosalia Valero. I will be with you today, and it is my pleasure to introduce to you Donia Estefanos, a great colleague. Donia is our Cambridge Exam Support Manager. And let me tell you, she does a wonderful job because she's the person who creates resources and is always helping us with new training materials to support you, your classes, your institutions, wherever you are in the world. So we are excited, Donia, to have you here in Mexico today. Donia has been a teacher and a trainer, so that is great experience. She knows about exams. She knows about teaching in the classroom. She knows about talking to all sorts of candidates, parents, colleagues, like all of you here today. Donia, thank you very much for accepting our invitation to be here. The stage is yours. But before you start, let me just say, on behalf of Leon Suna, our commercial director for all of Americas, an apology. He wanted to be with you here today, but there was something that had to be taken care of, so he cannot be with us today. That's the bad news. The good news is that we have a bit more of Donia, so that's always great. And Leon will try and be here with us next time. So, Donia, over to you.
Thank you so much, Rosalia. What a lovely, lovely introduction. Can I check? Can you see my slides okay? All good? Great. Excellent. Oh, yeah, it's honestly, it's so lovely to be here. And, Rosalia, you were just very kind and said it's nice to have a colleague like me where, I'm based in Cambridge, but it's so amazing to have a colleague like you as well, and everybody else in your team. We really are global and we all support each other, and we need each other. So I'm so delighted to be here with you all today. As Rosalia said, I am an exam support manager, so I am based in Cambridge, but my role is to work with you, with teachers, to understand your needs and your challenges, especially in relation to exams. And so I can try to create resources to support you and make your job a little bit easier, boost your confidence, and therefore help your learners do as well as they can do. So we really rely on you as teachers to give us your feedback and on colleagues like Rosalia. So I hope that you will be very participative in this session today. I'm going to be asking you questions and I'd like to hear from you. It's always just as valuable to learn from each other, our colleagues, as it is from Cambridge or a
Our
teacher.
Mexican audience is the best audience in the world.
I bet. Well, I'm excited to see that. I hope you prove her right. So what are we talking about today? So we're looking at a focus on reading. So, how can we maximize the materials that we have at our fingertips? How can we ensure that we're using them to really support our learners, help them do really well in their reading exams? But more than that, to be good readers, to love reading, and to be able to read beyond the exams for their lives. So, we're going to be looking at what makes a good reader. And then we're going to look at some essential reading skills and how we might help our learners develop those. I'm going to look at some of those developing some of those skills. And then, of course, we have lots of resources and materials to share with you. I was saying to Rosalia before, I would have loved 3 hours to be able to go through all of the reading exams and the tasks and the skills and go through lots of teaching ideas. But we just don't have the time. So we're going to do a little bit. I'm going to show you some examples, but I'm going to share with you lots of resources that have loads and loads of ideas that you can go away and look at and use in your classes. So first of all, I want to hear from you. As I said, it's important that you take part because you're the most important people in this session, not me, you. So I want to hear about your context. So please use the chat box and you can just say a yes or a no or a thumbs up or a thumbs down. What do you think about this? I enjoy helping my learners develop their reading skills. Do you enjoy teaching this skill? Yes, no, thumbs up, thumbs down. Do you enjoy it? Yes, excellent. I know some teachers really love it. I wonder if it depends on your opinion of reading. Some teachers I know find it hard, but lots of yeses. I do. Excellent. This is very good to hear. I think if we enjoy something, often that really translates to our learners. They can feel that enjoyment, can't they? And then it helps them do better at it as well. So that is wonderful. Right. Number 2, it's hard to find interesting texts and materials for reading. Is it hard? Do you tend to just use what's in your course book? Or do you try to find your own things? And if so, is that easy or is it hard? Is it hard to find interesting text? Is it hard to find things that actually your learners are interested in, that they're going to enjoy and not just read it because they have to, because it's in the classroom? Every week we have a special class for reading. Oh, that's really nice. Online, you can find a lot of materials on specific topics. Yeah. It can be pretty hard to find interesting readings, especially for basic levels. That's a really interesting point, actually, probably. Yeah, because there is lots of reading text out there. But yes, when you want something that's going to be easier, yes, that's a good point. Comics. Aha, lovely. Okay, let's move on. Reading takes too long and is a poor use of class time. I think I know what you're going to say here. Not at all. I'm pleased to hear that. I'm pleased to hear that. But you know, some people do think that. And actually, I visited a school recently, and the director of study said, we don't do much reading because it takes so much time. We try to get them to read at home. So it's interesting, isn't it? People's take on if something's too long, is it worth doing, rather than how useful is it and how important is it? It's necessary. It depends on students' level. Okay. All right. Now, it can be difficult to motivate learners, especially those who don't read much in their first language. Aha. So, Arturo, according to age, yes. And Carla, depends on the level. Definitely. And you know, we mustn't forget our learners are people. They're different. They're interested in different things. They find different things easy. So, of course, it's going to be hard to motivate some of them, isn't it? You can't always win at everything. All right, let's move on to number 5. It's very interesting hearing your thoughts. With a range of ability levels in the same class, I have to plan for fast finishers. Yes, someone said. And again, every class has a range of abilities, doesn't it? No class is the same. So I think it's quite normal. We've all got used to the idea that we need to vary what we're giving our learners because not everybody works through things at the same speed. Maybe because of levels or because of attention spans or because of maturity. There's lots of reasons, isn't there? So yes, and that can sometimes be challenging with reading, especially if students are trying to read quietly. And then the other students have finished and then they're active and then they can't concentrate. It can be a challenge. Okay, thank you for all your comments. Now, what I'd like you to consider, you see, I'm getting you to do a lot of the work here. Think about your learners, think about your context, and think about the good readers. And actually, you don't even have to think about your learners. You could think about people in your life, you, your colleagues, good readers. What do good readers do? What do they do? I'm going to give you one. They probably read quite regularly. I would imagine if you're a good reader, it takes practice. So you probably read regularly. What else? What else do good readers do? It could be about habits. It could be about abilities. Pay attention. Okay. They write. Ah, interesting. I like that. Yes, because we often think about skills, reading, writing, but actually they're all interlinked, aren't they? They're all joined up. It's sort of impossible. I mean, it's impossible to talk about one without another. They're attentive. They look up unknown words. Aha. Understand more when the teacher is talking. They can express themselves easily. They spend time. Nice ideas. Okay, I'm going to share some ideas. So they read regularly. They read a wide range of things. I think that's important, isn't it? To be able to be a good reader. If you think about what reading is, it's understanding different contexts, isn't it? And being able to read into things. And to be able to do that, you have to read a wide range of things. They reflect on what they read. I think somebody mentioned that. They take note of it. They reflect on maybe they take an interest in what they read and they can talk about it. They can say, "Oh, this I enjoyed this, or I didn't enjoy this, or I learnt this." So again, I think this really feeds into the reading for real life and not just I've got to read this article because I've got to answer questions about it in order to do well in my exam. That we don't want that in our classes, do we? We want them to read, to learn to read, to enjoy reading. What else? They use different reading skills. So maybe depending on what they're reading, they might realize that, I don't know, maybe like a poster, they just need to pick out specific words. They don't need to read the whole sentence. Or maybe a descriptive piece, they might need to read a bit more slowly and take more of it in because the details are important. Guess the meaning of unknown words. Aha, absolutely. Rosalia, I've just seen your comment about better to write to everyone. I think that has to be enabled by the host. So maybe you or somebody else behind the scenes can change that for everyone. But thank you for pointing that out because we want to all see what everybody's saying. Guess the meaning of unknown words. Aha. Now we'll come on to this one because we talk a lot about skills, reading skills, but actually, if you don't know a lot of the words, it can be quite difficult to do that, can't it? And record and reuse new vocabulary. That is key, isn't it? That is absolutely key. And seeing it in a context, in a story or a piece of text is very helpful for us to be able to do that. All right. So we've thought about what makes a good readers or what they do. So in order for us to help learners develop and excel in their exams. So we're thinking about the exams now, the reading exams. What do they need to do? Let's have a look at the overviews of the reading papers across a few different levels, and let's see what they have to do, and then try to pick out what skills they need to develop in order to be able to do them. So we've got first of all, what level is this? Testing you. What level is this? What do you think? We've got 5 reading tasks. It's A2 key. So this is A2 key. Let's just have a look at it, read it, keep in mind what skills do we need to help them develop in order to be able to do this. They have to read text for the main message. They have to read text and then match questions. They have to understand main ideas. They have to read a text and choose vocabulary. Complete gaps using a word. Okay, so keep that in your head. That's A2 key. Let's move up to B1 preliminary. Is it the same? Is it different? Is it the same with a bit added on? Comprehension, yeah. Oh, I love this comment. A good teacher enjoys discovering a good reader enjoys discovering new ideas. Yes, that's really lovely. Because that again gives you a reason to read, doesn't it? Infer, okay. So again, it's reading notices, messages, getting to the main message, detailed comprehension in this one, gist. Show understanding of how a text is structured and formed. And you see at the bottom, open, close, grammatical structures, phrasal verbs, and fixed phrases. Okay. And then finally, right up to B2 first. Bit longer, isn't it? Because of course, the B2 first exam also includes use of English, everybody's favourite. So thinking about the other two levels, what's been added on here? So I've seen some ideas. Any more? What do learners need? So in order for them to be able to complete these tasks in the exams, what do they need? What do we have to help them with? So we have to help them with comprehension, okay? How, I wonder? We have to teach them to infer. How? What are the skills that we need to help them develop? I'll share my ideas in a second. I'd like to see if we agree. Gonna have a sip of water while you think about it. I'm going to give you, okay, good. Understanding from context. Critical thinking. Do you know what? Critical thinking, yes, is a really, really important skill. Don't know if we need it for this reading exam, but we definitely need it for life. So it's really important to cover, and reasoning. Yeah. Identifying distractors. So I wonder in terms of distractors, maybe would that be sort of synonyms, antonyms, negatives, keywords? Okay, yes, we're getting somewhere. So keywords, so vocabulary, would you say? They need to learn vocabulary. Yes. Okay. Let me show you my list. And I think we're on the same page, so that's good. So yes, vocabulary I've put as number one. Idioms and collocations, which I think fit into that. Yes, but especially I'm thinking sort of use of English, understanding main ideas, which you all identified as well. So maybe what would that be? Sort of skimming, finding specific information. So maybe scanning, text structure, and understanding of context and genre. So these are really important skills that they need in order to become good readers in the world. And they're also the same skills that are tested in the exam because, of course, the tasks are designed to reflect real world, really, aren't they? So by preparing our learners for these exams, we're preparing them to be good readers in life as well. So let's have a look now at some of these. We're going to look at them in a bit more depth and how we can help our learners with these in the classroom. So I'm going to start off with vocabulary, idioms, collocations. I've got a quote here with a number missing. Can you guess the number? Adequate reading comprehension depends on a person already knowing between what percentage of the words in a text? What percentage of the words in a text? 80%. Okay, we've got a couple of 80s. All right, not bad. Any other guesses? Higher or lower? We're looking for a range because it says between. So we're looking for a range. So far we've got 80%. Any other ideas? 85 to 90. lots of you are saying sort of 80. Okay, well, my research here has told me actually it's about 90 to 95%. So it's much higher than than you've guessed. It's higher than I think I would have thought too. Um, and it just shows you, we often put so much emphasis on reading skills, which are important. We have to learn those skills, but often we kind of neglect actually the importance of vocabulary. Vocabulary is so important. So I'm going to show you a few resources that will help you develop your learners' vocabulary in order to support them with their reading skills. So I'm just going to show you here. We've got this resource and it's a vocabulary booklet. Now, this particular one has been created for B1 preliminary. And the reason it's specifically for that level is because it's used the word list that goes alongside the exam. So all the vocabulary activities are using the words from the word list. But that doesn't mean that you can't use these activities for B2 first, for A2, for any level really. You can just adapt the methodology and the guide and just use different vocabulary, okay? So there's a link there, and I will share all the resources with you. You will get them sent to you, so don't worry. You'll have them all at your fingertips. Now, this particular book, it has 10 activities, and they're all linked to exam tasks. Now, this is what it looks like, and this is what it looks like inside. So it's actually really detailed. It goes through sort of common challenges for vocabulary and ideas that you can do to help them. So this is just one example, and I'm not going to go through it all. I'm just going to show you where this resource is for you to go and look at yourself. So this is, 15, 20 minutes, my perfect holiday. The vocabulary is connected to travel and holidays. And there are ideas there for how you might support your learners who need extra support, extra challenge, and how you might adapt it. So that's a lovely resource for you to go away and have a look at. Now, if you're teaching B2 first for schools or general, I think, it's fair to say there's a huge emphasis on phrasal verbs. If you think about reading, actually, obviously they're all throughout text, but thinking about use of English as well, how important phrasal verbs can be, getting the right preposition after, common phrases, and learners love learning about them. They always ask for more because they find them so helpful. And they can really be the key to understanding those more complicated reading texts, having a really good knowledge base of phrasal verbs. So we've got some posters which have phrasal verbs at the bottom. They're quite small there. You probably can't see them very clearly. And they're all related to topics around the exam and also just general topics for learners of that age. So technology, the environment, and entertainment. So engaging topics that are going to be motivating. And we have activities to go through to go with them. These have common phrasal verbs. These ones are related to the entertainment poster. And what learners need to do is they need to put them into context, put them in the right question, and then it can become a speaking activity and they can ask each other the questions as a way of practicing that language. So that's a really lovely activity. And again, you can adapt this and use phrasal verbs that are related to your learners. You could pick some out from a course book. What's the focus? Learners can make their own questions up. So that's a really nice one that I would recommend you going to look at. So that's a little look at vocabulary. Now let's have a think about skills develop. What about C1? There are some posters for C1 actually. Yeah, there are. And everything that I'm showing you can be adapted to whatever level you're teaching. These are just ideas. These are activities and I always think as a teacher, it's good to have a bank of activities that work for you and that work for your learners and that you enjoy doing and that aren't too difficult to set up. And then you can adapt those to different levels and different vocabulary sets. So this is definitely one that can be adapted. So let's have a look now at some skills development. So reading skills. So let's have a think about a text. If a student is having a look at a text, what do they need to know about it in order to understand it? What do they need to know about it? So I'm gonna start you off. They need to know the text type, right? Is it a notice? Is it an email? Is it a recipe? They need to know who it's written for. Exactly, Johanna, the context, the topic. Who is it written for? Is it for their teacher? So is it going to be quite formal? Is it for a parent? Is it for a friend? Who wrote it? Who wrote it? Because that will affect who it's for. That will affect what it is. That will affect the complexity of it, the length of it. And why did they write it? Is it to entertain? Is it to provide information? Is it to make an arrangement? This is the kind of information that students have to infer, have to take from a reading text. And I think we can take for granted actually how complex that is, especially in a second language. So knowing the answers to these questions, they're going to help learners to read more efficiently because it helps them to anticipate where useful information is going to be. Where are they going to get the main ideas? And it also helps them to make much better guesses about, what it's likely to contain and the kind of words that are used and the sort of information that's shared. All of that aids comprehension. So let's have a look now at a sample task. So we're going to look at A2 Key for Schools reading part 1. I'm going to show you a text and I want you to read it quickly. You won't have time to read every word, so try to focus on the layout, the headings, obvious connections between the words and the topic. Try to get some clues about who it's written by and for. Go. So, what type of text is it? That's enough time. What type of text is it? Can you share? It's a text message. Hooray. I bet you didn't even have to read it to get that. You can see it's a phone because your first impression of how a text looks is also really it's a big part of comprehension, isn't it? That's how you use your top-down processing about the world to have some understanding of what you're reading. Okay. You're ahead. Who's it written for? Yes, To Dad by Zara. And why? Okay, it informs Lorraine. Yes, it's informing her dad that the match is cancelled. It's informing her dad that mum has taken the little brother to the pool. And she's going to see a film. Okay, great. Well done. Let's look at the next one. Read it quickly. Okay, that's enough time. What is it? What kind of text is it? And again, you can guess that just by looking at it. An announcement. Yes, you can see the little pegs. It's stuck on the wall. It's a note. Who is it for? Oh, it's a warning, somebody said, or a note. It's for students. Yeah. Announcement for students. Exactly. And why? Why? What's it telling us? It's telling us about a book. All right. Very good. Okay. So, we've got all this from clues, from inferring what it looks like. So now let's take a step back. You were just the students there. What skill did you practice? What did you do? What skill did you practice? You skimmed the text, didn't you? You did some skimming. You found out information quickly. So the skimming stage is part of an activity, actually, which I've got from a guide. And this guide is helping teachers develop reading skills. So perfect for you. So this is what the guide looks like. I'm going to show it to you. Oh, and that lesson should be at the top, but it's underneath. So these steps that I've taken was taken from this lesson plan in this guide. Okay. So this activity helps learners develop their skimming and their scanning skills. Okay. And it's showing them a way to sort of approach the reading paper. And it's helping learners be aware of the skills and strategies that they work on in class and help them make better decisions and be more effective readers. Because to be able to demonstrate their reading skills in exam tasks, it does help for learners to be familiar with the tasks themselves. So it can be useful to use the exam tasks when developing those skills. You don't have to only use exam tasks to develop those skills, but it's good to do that as well. So let's look at an example of a familiarization task. And again, developing more skills. Keep in mind what you're doing because at the end, I'm going to ask you what skills you've developed and what you've done, which I'm doing because it's a really important thing for us to do with our learners. So here is a task. Now I would get learners to explain to me, what do you have to do here? What do you have to do? Tell me in the chat, what's the task? What do you have to do? Understand the general idea. Yeah. So you're reading and you have to choose the correct option. You have to choose the correct option. So I would say, right, why don't you now have a look at this task in detail? Get a highlighter. You could have a yellow or whatever color you have. And think about who is mentioned and highlight those details in the three options. So first of all, just in yellow, highlight in the three options who is mentioned. Who is mentioned? And then when you've done that, compare it with the person next to you. See if you agree. See if you agree. Have you highlighted the same words? Let's see if you agree with me. So these are the words I've highlighted. You can see all the words relating to who. So the first one's related to students. B is the school. And C is you. Okay. All right. Now, second question. Oops, I've gone too far. What are they doing? What are they doing? Get your blue highlighter. Highlight what is it they're doing. And again, get students to do it and check with their partners before giving their ideas to the whole class as a way to build confidence and help them teach each other. So again, let's see if you agree with me. So what are they doing? They have to pay £10, 50. It's planning to change. You cannot find, buy another one. So remind them that they're looking for the same information, but not exactly the same words in the notice. So they've highlighted in their options now. Now they're going to look at the notice and choose the correct one. So they might have to look for synonyms because the words might not be the same. It's probably a good idea for them to underline the important information again before checking with their partner. So have a look at the notice and circle the important words. And then check with the person next to you if you're in the same room, or you would just get your learners to do that. And that really, makes sure that they justify and explain their answer. And it gives them more reason to think about their answer before just kind of guessing it, because they have to tell their partner. Now, when you do check your answers with the whole class, a really important step, I think, is to explain why the incorrect options are wrong, as well as their reasons for choosing the correct answer. So let's do it together. Tell me in the chat, is option A correct or incorrect? I'm going to show you bits I've circled. Is A correct or incorrect? No, it's incorrect. Okay, but why? Why is it incorrect? This is the important information here. Why is it incorrect? It's incorrect because students only pay if they lose the book. They only pay if they lose the book. Is B correct or incorrect? Is B correct or incorrect? The school is planning to change the science textbook that students use. Is that correct? No, it's not correct. But why? Because there's no mention of a textbook change in the notice. No mention of that. C, you cannot find your science. If you cannot find it, you will have to buy another one. And of course, that is the correct one. Because why? It says if you lose yours, which is the same as if you cannot find it. So you see the words aren't exactly the same. It's not a word spot. They have to have synonyms. Again, it's about vocabulary here, isn't it? So the skimming and the scanning skill is important, but so is the vocabulary. So this exam, you can see, involves an understanding of the context and the meaning. All right, how did you all do? Sorry, I'm having a few issues with my slides. Now, the activity booklet that I showed you before will show you this really clearly. It's set out so nicely. Look, so this is exactly what we just did. I asked you which one is wrong and why, which one is right and why. And this is how it sets it out in that booklet. So this is a really important step in reading development because it helps learners really focus on the words and work out what they've got wrong and why. And that's how they're going to improve rather than just guessing. So let's think about that task now. Let's take a step back as teachers. What skills did you practice? What skills did you practice? So let's go back to the beginning. By flashing up those texts that you had to skim, right? It was the only way to successfully complete the first activity was to skim. So you were asked to then reflect upon the skills that you used. And then what was involved then was helpful. Okay, so you understanding the skills that you applied there is helpful because then you know that you have to apply that skill next time. All right. And then what about the next part? What about looking at the options and highlighting and circling? How did that help learners focus on specific skills? Finding clue words, yep, finding specific information, reading comprehension, exactly. So really getting them to focus on those specifics is just so important. So would you say these activities, do they test or develop reading and language skills? Do they test or develop? This is a big thing because so often when we get ready, when we're getting our learners ready for exams, we can focus on let's give them a sample test, let's test them, let's see how they're doing. But if the focus is always on testing them, how are they going to get better? So it's really important that, especially things like reading, these skills that we can develop those skills in order for them to get better. So these activities are designed to help them get better. And, getting support from others, getting repeated opportunities to do it. They did the same thing over and over again. That repetition means they're going to internalize that and they're going to get used to doing that on their own without you having to say, highlight this, highlight that. You do that with them a few times and then it just becomes normal. That's just what they start to do and they develop that skill and it becomes automated. And getting students to reflect on the skills that they use, again, involving them increases their awareness of the skills and their ability to use them independently. Okay, and then finally, at the beginning, we talked about having to adapt for different learners. So, how might you have adapted those activities? They were very supportive, weren't they? They went step by step. How might you adapt that sort of activity? So, perhaps thinking about those skills, how might you adapt those for your classes if you have a stronger class or a weaker class or a more lively class or a class that you think wouldn't be interested in those topics? How might you adapt those? Some things that you could do is you could use, as I said before, different texts. You don't have to always use the exam task to develop those skills. So you could get learners to choose their own. Bring something in, and then you can create tasks from a source material that they've chosen, involving them and getting them, in part of the learning process. If it's something like posters or notices, learners could even make their own, couldn't they? You could do it differently. You could get the questions. You could have the text around the walls in the classroom if you wanted to make it a bit more kinesthetic, and learners could walk around with their options and try and find the right one. Again, they could work together with their partners or they could do it on their own. You could think about doing it digitally if that works for your context. You could change the pairings. There's lots of things that you can do to adapt these activities as long as the focus is on developing those skills. So, thinking about all of that, let's think about how we might help teachers and how you might help your colleagues. Some top tips for developing reading skills. What are the missing words? Right, let's have a look at the first one. Show Anne in what learners read. What could that be? Show Anne. It's a bit of use of English here, isn't it? It's Anne, so we know the next word must begin with a vowel. An interest. Yes, okay. Show an interest in what learners read. Now, this is really important. As we said before, learning to read is a life skill and we want them to enjoy it. So if your learners come and they're reading a comic, do not say, oh, that's too easy for you. Oh, you should be reading a much harder book. Or that's babyish. It doesn't matter what they're reading. As long as they're reading, we must encourage it. Show an interest. Ask them a question. Oh, wow. Where did you get that from? Oh, who's the main character? What do you like about it? Whatever they're reading. A magazine, a book, a novel, anything. A ticket. Show an interest. All right, number 2, help learners think about different reading skills and to use them. How to use them. That is crucial because we can give them all these rules, but if they don't know how to use them, then they're pointless. It's all about use. It's the most important thing. Get learners to work out or guess the meaning. Yes. So we talked a little bit about meaning and how important it is and actually how that can be really difficult. But if you use the right text and you know that learners, they've had a good intro to the topic, you've discussed some things around the text, and there are some words that they don't know, then they will be able to guess it. But again, that's a skill that you need to develop. And there are activities for developing that skill in the reading booklet. So do have a look. Focus on what development? What development? Meaning? Learner's development. Okay, yeah. That's not the answer, but I think actually, yeah, you do need to think about your learner's development and what's cognitively suitable for them, for their age and what they're able to do. Oh, I think I just took two off there. So it was vocabulary development and remind learners to highlight and underline key information. I gave you that answer. And then the next one, something learners with exam task types and provide a process. I'm going to go through these quickly because of time and give your learners plenty of practice, 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 practice. So I mentioned those reading guides, and the reason I keep mentioning them is because they really go into a lot of detail in how to develop these skills in order for your learners to become better readers. And I just don't have time to go through them all. So here's a little overview. So this is what they look like. And there's one for every level from A2 key upwards. We don't have one for young learners yet. So there are lesson plans and activities. They break down the challenges, some of the challenges that we've talked about, and they suggest general strategies for reading in life and specific exam strategies that they need for exam tasks. And here is the inside of one. And I've popped this in because this is a look at B2 First, which we haven't had a chance to look at properly. And it gives you some aims there. It's about collocations. It has a handout and it gives you a bit of a sample task, a bit like an exam, and then the answer key. So I just wanted to share with you what that looked like. So where can we find these resources? It's key, isn't it, to know where to find them all. So there are actually 2 access points on the website that offer support and resources. I'm going to show you both of them because they're both very useful, but they have different purposes. So it depends on what you're looking for and what you want. So the first one is the exam preparation journey. Do you know about the exam preparation journey? Give me a yes or a thumbs up in the chat box if you do. It's a really, really wonderful resource for teachers preparing for exam. Yes, everyone's saying yes. That's great. So you've probably seen what it looks like there. This is what it looks like when you open it. There's these packs and they have tips, activities, and content depending on where you are in your journey. So I've got this lovely image which sort of shows you the journey. So at the beginning, it might be things about planning your course. Nearer the middle, it's about mock tests and samples. Nearer the end, it's about building confidence and sample tests. So depending on where you are, you could dip in and out. And you can access all of our resources through it as well. There is actually pack 4 is about maximising materials, and there is an article about reading and use of English, and it's different to what I've covered today. So I definitely would recommend going in and having a look, and it gives you some lovely activities for using texts in a course book, but in a very different way. So when you click into it, there's a video at the beginning of each pack, and just above the video, can you see there's a tab that says key resources? And if you click there, you get a list of all the levels, and then whichever level you're teaching, you click on, and it will take you to the preparation page. So that's one way to access our resources. And then the second access point. So yeah, I think just to reiterate, the exam preparation journey is a good one to go in if you want to look at where you are in your exam preparation journey and what you should be doing at different points or your planning. If you're just looking for general resources, it doesn't matter where you are, you just want to, I want to find the handbook or I want to find some warmers, you could go to cambridgeenglish.org and under learning English, there's exam preparation. And then you get to this list of all the levels. And this is my favorite page because I just think it's very easy to find. And then you click on it and it takes you to the exam preparation page. So it actually takes you to the same page as through the exam preparation journey. It's just a different way in. So they're both very useful. Knocked over my light there. And then it's separated into exam essentials, teacher essentials, learner essentials. Now, the guides are under teacher essentials. You can see their teacher guides, and there's developing reading skills. Now, these do also exist for other skills, but the focus today is on reading. So that's the one that I wanted to highlight to you. And there's another resource which I haven't talked about, but I thought actually it's really worth telling you about. And it's under Learner Essentials, and they are self-study lesson plans. And the reason I think they're really good is because they focus on particular skills. So this is the one for B2 first, and these three focus on reading and different parts of the use of English. But these do also exist for other levels. For reading. And they can be used as a self-study. That's what they were designed for, but they can also be used in the classroom. So, have a look at one. You can work through it step by step with your learners, and it will probably take a few lessons. And it's a really lovely development from start to finish. It's about understanding it and developing the skills. And then there's the opportunity to do a practice and then some reflection. So this is what one looks like. So this is the reading and use of English part 6. So you see it gives you tips about preparing, where to start, practicing reading skills. It's about taking an active interest. And then the focus here is about reading for gist. So it gives you some tips, and it tells you to do some research, and it gives you some strategies for dealing with new vocabulary. So here it's focusing on use, it's focusing on form, looking at what's before and after it, developing those skills that are really important, especially for those higher level texts that are more complex. And then after that, it's looking at specific details. It's connectives here, so it's looking at structure as well. So I would highly, highly recommend going and having a look at that and using it in your classes, using it in a professional development session with your colleagues. So I think we are out of time so just to recap on everything we've looked at today, we talked about what makes a good reader. And from that, we picked out some essential reading skills, both needed for the exams and just for life, and looked at how some of those skills can be developed. We focused on an A2 key task, and then we looked at some resources and materials, which I'm going to share the links to in your follow-up email. So I think that is all from me. Here is a QR code that I've been requested to share with you from Rosalia. Are you there, Rosalia? Do you have any
I'm
questions? I think we've
here.
got a couple
I'm
of minutes
here. I've been
only.
listening attentively, and I think we've got one question. Well, most people are going there. And
Okay.
our colleagues have said it's time to take roll to receive your certificate, because we know it's important for you to show that you went to this, what we call Consejo Técnico in Mexico, Donia. So
Uh-huh.
let's see if we can have, I think there's enough time to have a go.
Yeah.
We've got a question for Mariana, and it says, you mentioned the main focus of first, Cambridge B2 first, is phrasal verbs. Similarly, what is the main vocabulary focus of the advanced exam?
Mm.
What would you
That's
say?
a good question. And do you know what? It's always a bit of a tricky one because it's so much more straightforward up to B1 because you have word lists, isn't it?
Yeah.
And then people say, why don't we have word lists for the higher levels? And really, the answer is because it's never ending. The more vocabulary, the better, right? And we wouldn't want to restrict it. So the idea with the lower levels is that it's supportive and, step by step, and it's the essentials that you need. But really, at those levels, the broader that your vocabulary, the better. I did talk about phrasal verbs. I think, yeah, I must correct myself. It's not the only focus, but it is very important. And I'd say the same for advanced as well, because there's just so many of them and they're so common. And often I think students find them hard because you can't always guess the meaning of them. You read one and you're like, but what does that mean? With this random like preposition at the end of it. So that's why I say, it's good to focus on them because they're everywhere, and they come up so naturally. So I'd say similarly for the advanced exam as well, it's really, really important. But the wider that you can encourage your students to read, the better. The more range of contexts and genres, the more exposed they're going to be to all the different language.
Exactly, because as we have said, and you pointed out so beautifully, the more we read, we can see how our vocabulary grows because the
Yeah.
lexical universe expands for us. That's
Yes.
why we cannot have a word list for B2 or C1 or even imagine for C2.
Just the
Sadly,
dictionary.
Donia, reading is not something so
Mm.
so natural in Mexico. I'm sad to say the national report states that the average number of books that Mexicans read in a year is 1 to 2, which is awful. And everybody knows that's why we always recommend when this is when we talk to families, especially with young learners, with teenagers, right? They have to see people in their families reading,
Yeah.
right? So that it can become something natural and something that they enjoy, because the more we read, the more we can expand our vocabulary. This has been really very good, Donia. It's been a pleasure having you here. And our participants agree you will have to come back for next year's Success Academy, of course. And Donia has been focusing on some bits of pack 4, because when you go to each pack, you see that there are so many things that you can
Yeah.
explore to help you support your own context. So this means that our next Success Academy webinar will be focusing on pack 5, mock test best practice,
Oh,
right? We hope to have Leon Suna with us next time. So, Donia, once again, Mexico thanks you for being here. It's been lovely. Thank you, all of you.
thank
Please.
you so much.
No, it's been really lovely. We have to have you back. So please scan that QR code to get your certificate of attendance. As always, thank you very much. Remember, all you have to do is reach out. Some of you will talk to Sophie. Some of you will talk to your coaches. Some of you will be talking to your centers, from your preparation centers. All you have to do is ask your Cambridge contact to support you. We're there for you. And as I say, Donia, you're the start of making these wonderful resources and materials, new things, updated activities, etc. happen. So thank you very much. To all of you, enjoy. It's a long weekend here in Mexico, Donia. So as we say in Spanish, it's a puente, a
A
bridge,
puente,
right?
yes.
Right. So that's your Spanish lesson for today. Thank you very much, and see you at the next Success Academy
Oh,
webinar.
enjoy the puente. Take care.
Bye from
Bye.
now. Thank you.